If you have multiple sclerosis, hopefully you know this by now, but in order to get stronger and also improve your daily activities and movements and functions, you need to be doing functional exercise. And this is something that I talk about a lot, but I recently had an experience where I actually implemented functional exercise myself. So I wanted to give you a demonstration of exactly what I mean when I say the phrase functional exercise, because it's one thing to understand what it is, but it's another thing to see it and to be able to use it and implement it into your current exercise routine. So, before I show you exactly how to do a functional exercise, I want to give you a backstory as to why I was doing this in the first place. I am now 12 weeks postpartum, which is crazy to say. Time is flying by, but also it feels like it's been a long time since one day post-op. Regardless, I had a C-section for my delivery of the baby. And whether you have a C-section or a normal vaginal delivery, your core muscles are extremely weak after being pregnant, especially if you have a cesarean, because without getting too graphic, they've got to go through a lot of layers to get the baby out, and that makes your core even more weak. And I had been doing a lot of core strengthening exercises leading up to the delivery of my baby, but I knew I wanted to get back to core strengthening as quickly as possible postpartum. Now, of course, there's the generalized guideline of waiting 6 weeks postpartum to start exercising, but there's actually a lot of very light, easy exercises that you can do, as simple as breathing exercises, to start engaging your core muscles, even just a few days post delivery. So, with this in mind, I decided I need to strengthen my core, mostly because my husband was taking 2 weeks off of paternity leave, but he had to go back to work. And I wanted to feel comfortable lifting my baby up, putting her into the car seat, putting the car seat into the car, and being able to move around. And just a few days post op, that seemed like an unimaginable feat. Like, I knew I wasn't strong enough to do that. I knew it would hurt my back, that my core wasn't going to be able to handle that. So I wanted to be prepared for this, and I knew functional exercise is the best way. So I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly what I did to improve this specific activity because I was working on this goal. So, as I mentioned, I wanted to be able to pick up the car seat with my baby in it, be able to walk the car seat outside, and then put the car seat in the car without injuring myself and having a good amount of core strength so that I could do that activity in the first place. So, there's lots of classic core strengthening exercises. Things that might come to your mind are things like planks or wall push-ups or crunches. All those are great, but they're not functional. A functional exercise means that you pick an activity that you want to be easier and you break it down into as many movements as possible. And those movements are now your exercises. So that's exactly what I did for this activity. So for the sake of this video, I do not have my baby in this car seat. I am using a stuffed animal, and obviously it doesn't weigh a lot of weight. But let's break it down so that you can see exactly what I mean by doing a functional exercise. For starters, I did not start this exercise with my baby in the car seat. That is like the last step. So we're just going to throw the dog over there. So in order for me to pick up this car seat, I first need to be able to get close to it and pick it up. So that's actually two different exercises right there. I need to be able to do a squat. I need to be able to bend low enough to grab it and then stand up and bend my elbow to pick it up. So that's two different movements. We'll come back to that in a bit. But once I do that, then I need to be able to walk around while carrying the car seat. So I didn't want to carry the car seat like this. That would be really hard for my bicep. So I decided I was going to carry it like this. There are a few other ways, but that's neither here nor there. So needed to be able to hold the car seat and walk around because I needed to be able to go out to the car and put it in the car. So I might have to walk around a few chairs or down a hallway, holding my baby to bring her outside. So this is being able to do this, just holding and moving is part of what I need to be able to do to go outside and put her in the car. Then it's a matter of putting it in the car, which the way that my car seat is in my car requires that I grab this back side, and I actually have to put her in like this and this. I have a small car, and so it's kind of challenging to put this in, but I need to be able to put it in like that. It clicks in, and then we're good to go. So to recap, what I need to do in order to fully do this activity is bend, straighten, and lift, hook around, be able to walk around with it, grab the car seat like this, be able to move it like this, and click it in. And while it might not seem like that much core work, my core is working a lot during all of those movements. So this is how I broke that activity down into exercises. I believe it was about 1 week postpartum, maybe 2 weeks, but I think it was before the 2-week mark, where I felt like I was well enough where I could start doing very light movements. I had already been practicing some breathing exercises for core strengthening. So I decided to start with the first step. So for several days, I decided to do this as an exercise where I bent down and I picked it up. I didn't even bend my elbow at first. And then I put it down. And I would tighten my core, brace those core muscles. If you're in my total core program, then you know that this is the bracing exercise where we're activating our deepest abdominal layer. So I'm bracing and then I'm bending and picking up. And I would do repetitions of this. I would do up to 10. At first, I only did about 5 because that's what I felt I could do with good form and good quality. But once 5 got easier, then I would do 10. And then I would do 15. So I was doing that for probably several days. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 days. Then, once I felt strong enough with that, I practiced picking it up and I would move the car seat from there. So I just stayed in this position. I'd be holding onto the top and I would go out and in, out and in. I would also go down and up. I just tried to do as many movements as I thought I might be able to do or might need to do when holding the car seat. And then, of course, let me turn this way. I also grabbed the back of it and I practiced going out and in. And this was one of my core strengthening exercises. I'm not going to lie, it's also an arm exercise. My arms are pretty tired just from doing a few repetitions of this. But I'm practicing tightening my core while doing this. I also did it this way with this stance because this was one of the other movements. So I'm strengthening each component of the activity. So similarly to the first exercise, I would do up to 10 repetitions of this specific exercise until I felt like I could tolerate it with no pain, with good core activation. So now that's a few different exercises. It was just the bending and standing up and putting it down, doing that for several days. Then we added on the movement of the car seat, whether it was like this or this. I practiced up to 10 repetitions once a day at first, and then 2 or 3 times a day after that. And then the next step was walking around holding the car seat. So I hooked my arm like this and I would walk around. I would time myself for about 1 minute and I would just walk around. There's no right or wrong here. You're just moving around, but your core is activated and you're trying to have good posture so that you're not going to injure your low back or anything of that sort. So this was another exercise that I did. Again, I did about 1 minute and at first just once a day, but eventually I did it a few times. So far, for me to improve the activity of lifting up a car seat and putting it in the car and taking it out of the car, we've got our squat exercise where we lifted the car seat. We've got our exercise with our arms where we're practicing tightening our core and moving the car seat in different directions. We've got our hold and walking around. So these would be things you're doing multiple repetitions of while keeping your core muscles nice and tight, because that was my main goal, was to be able to do this with good core strength. So then once I was able to do all of that and I'm feeling confident, then it's time to add weight because the car seat has been empty this whole time. So at first, I did not add my baby right into the car seat. I actually have a 2-pound weight, a dumbbell that I put in the car seat that I practice doing the same exercises just with the 2-pound weight in there. So I worked my way up. But eventually, I grabbed my baby, in this case, the stuffed animal, and I put her in the car seat and I practiced the same exercises with her in it. Because what good is it if I can move the car seat around without her in it? She's got to be in it. So she was in there, I'm tightening my core, and I'm doing the same exercises that we just discussed. So I'm practicing lifting it up with her weight and then putting it down, all while keeping my core muscles nice and taut. I then also practiced several repetitions of moving the car seat away from my body, like this. I also practiced this since I had to be able to move it in that direction. I also even practiced moving it side to side, because I thought there might be a situation where I actually have to pick up the car seat where I'm not facing the car seat, and that uses different core muscles. So I practiced moving it from side to side with her in it. I also practiced holding it, walking around my home with her in it. So the same exercises, but with her in it, because that's even more functional. And then I practiced the full activity of putting her in the car. So we actually went out to the car and I held on to her the way that I've been practicing. I tightened my core muscles and I practiced putting it in and clipping it down. And then I would put it down, step away. Then I'd come back and I'd unclick it, lift, turn, and out. So this perfectly demonstrates exactly what we should be doing for functional exercise. The first step is breaking down the activity into as many movements as possible, and each movement is now an exercise that you can do several repetitions of. But then the second step is to actually do the activity in the real life situation. So first step is exercise. Second step for me was get out to the car and actually practice everything that I've been training myself for in the car, practicing moving her in and out. And this also brings the concept of exercising in a functional location into the conversation. Exercising in a functional location means that we'll be even more likely to utilize the strength that we're getting in the location that we want to. When you have MS, your brain and spinal cord has less carryover. And what that means is that you might practice these exercises in your home and get really strong and great at maneuvering this car seat in your home. But you get out to the car and your muscles don't understand that this is the situation that you wanted to be able to utilize your strength in. So practicing at the car allows your brain to understand that carryover, that you want to be able to utilize this strength in your car when you're doing that actual activity. So it's a two-step approach, and it's the same thing when we're talking about any daily activity. Of course, this is specific to me and my experience being postpartum and wanting to feel comfortable moving the car seat around if I didn't have help from anyone else. But you do the same thing if you're trying to improve your walking or standing up from a low surface or a squishy surface like a chair. Or if you're trying to climb stairs, if you're trying to get in or out of a car with better quality and not lifting your legs, all of these things are daily activities that can be broken down into lots of different movements. Each movement can be an exercise. And what you're going to do is practice those movements as exercises in addition to practicing the movement as a whole in the appropriate location. I hope you found that demonstration helpful. I talk about functional exercise a lot, and mostly in regards to improving your walking when you have multiple sclerosis. But I thought this was a really great opportunity to show you a real life situation of how to do functional exercise in a way where it will improve a specific activity beyond walking. Every exercise that I teach my missing link members is functional and it's based on neuroplasticity. What I mean by that is that it allows you to not only strengthen your muscles, but also strengthen the neural pathway from your brain all the way down to your muscles. And that's really important because when you have MS, you have weakness, not just due to weak muscles, but due to a weak connection of your neural pathways. So, strengthening your neural pathways is the way that you will actually see improvements in your walking and your mobility. The final note I want to leave you on is that when you have multiple sclerosis, it might take you longer to go through each of the phases. As I mentioned, when I was doing the first exercise of squatting down and lifting up the car seat, I mentioned that I did that for a few days, about 4 or 5 days. You might take a bit longer to get stronger with that one movement. It might take a few weeks or even a few months before you think about adding on the next one. So take your time. There's no race in this. It's just a matter of figuring out which exercises to do, doing them long enough for you to feel like you're getting stronger and more stable with each exercise before progressing to the next one, and then eventually implementing it in the correct location. So take your time. You don't have to follow the same guidelines that I did. I mentioned that I did up to 10 repetitions. That might be a good start for you, or maybe you do up to 5 repetitions at first, or maybe up to 20 repetitions. Again, there's no right or wrong. You're just looking for the right exercise, doing as many repetitions as you can with good quality and good muscle activation, and then moving on to the next exercise and implementing it. If you haven't heard of my online MS wellness program, The Missing Link, you might want to check it out if this whole conversation is intriguing you, because there's lots of ways that you can get stronger if you're using the right approach when you have a disease like multiple sclerosis. So I will put a link down in the description where you can learn more about the program and see if it's a good fit for you to help you with the goals and activities that you're hoping will be easier throughout your day.